We're joined by attorney Robert James, a familiar figure around Atlanta Metro, the former DeKalb district attorney. Mr. James, we appreciate you being with us tonight. And if you would give us your view of what has transpired so far this evening.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. The DA's office has, brought an indictment. There are probably multiple individuals involved, most likely the former president of the United States. And but what we have to understand is that an indictment is not a conviction. It's just the beginning of the process. So it's like poking the bear. You have to finish the fight. And so, there will be a fight coming. There will be trials coming. Evidence will be presented. And so there are miles to go before DA Fonnie Willis sleeps.
Has taken 2.5 years. Is that too long in your estimation? Do you believe the system must change in terms of grand juries and their relationship with jury trials?
No, you take as long as you need, because ultimately, as the elected Fulton County DA, she's the only person that's going to be held accountable if there's some sort of misstep. So, when you look at the nature of the evidence in this case, perhaps there are several different things going on. We've heard about, we know about the phone call, we know about the voting machines up in Fulton County. There's the alleged fake electors, and God knows what else. And so all of this has to be put into place, and it could be complex. And so ultimately, there's a saying that we used to use in our public integrity unit, and that's when you indict, be ready to fight. And so there is no more investigation when you indict someone. You had better be prepared to prove it. And if it takes 2 years, it takes 2 years.
Charges and District Attorney Fonnie Willis's expertise in these Rico charges. Do Rico charges, and again, I'm going to use a very simplistic definition of these for those who don't follow these kinds of things. Essentially, it is a group of people that are together, a team that are uniting toward a misadventure of some kind in the eyes of the court. Does it make this case more difficult with a former president?
It makes it more complex, but in some ways it makes it, I don't want to say easier to prove, but it makes it easier to present. Because ultimately, when you're presenting a Rico case, what you're doing is that you're pulling together a lot of different material. We call them predicate acts. You need at least 2 predicate acts in Georgia, 2 criminal acts in Georgia to be the basis of it. And you're saying that these acts, although seemingly unrelated, came together and advanced a scheme or an enterprise. And so, it gives you more to prove, but you can tell the full story as opposed to just telling the story of one predicate act. You can tell the full story of how all of these crimes came together to fill out, a big picture. And that's what prosecutors in Georgia use Rico for, and on the federal level.
Mr. James, what should we be looking for now in the hours ahead, and maybe even the days also?
Yeah, well, one of the things I'm going to be looking at is when this indictment is made public, if the former president is in fact indicted, is true billed, right? We know that there are a lot of things that have been alleged, here in Georgia, not just a phone call, but like I say, the Coffee County incident and also the fake electors. I'm curious to see, what evidence connects him directly to this information. There's a legal threshold that has to be crossed, and it doesn't necessarily you don't necessarily need direct connection. It can be indirect, but practically, if you're indicting him and you're putting it in front of citizens, you want direct connection. And so I'm curious to see what evidence there is.
Attorney Robert James. Mr. James, thanks a lot for your time tonight, the former DeKalb district attorney. We appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you in the hours ahead. Thanks again.